What's up?
Her eyes that cut right through me. Sure as shit knows what she's doing. Steps that shake the ground beneath her. Please me dry and I'm fucking eager for her to stomp me down every time that she's around. So feed my hungry eyes, starve my heart and famish mine. Stacking logs and building fires full of passion and desire. But those flames are consuming their insatiable.
Hey everyone, Matt here from Underground Experience, and today I'm here with OG Jonny G.
How's it going, man?
Good, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. So first let's talk about your sound. The sound that your music conveys, and let's talk a little bit about like what kind of genres that fits into, or what if you were to describe the sound to somebody, how would you describe it?
So what I really pride myself on with my sound is it really, like, you can really hear the influences from like mid 2000s, that pop punk stuff, and then getting into like a little bit of the mid tens, early tens, but in a way that's a little more modern. Uh, uh, there's a lot more, how would you say it? A lot more elements that are electronically influenced. And it's just really refreshing too, because it gives you that nostalgia, but also, it's new and fresh and a little different.
For sure, I would agree. It's definitely like this kind of combination of a lot of different elements throughout musical history, but mostly like recent music history, kind of with the kind of outbursts of pop punk. I think it does embrace like a lot of pop punk combined with emo, and then a little bit even with those electronic influences, like you said. It almost reminds me of, and I hate to compare you to this, but a little bit like MGK, but
Yeah.
like way better. Well, I'm way better
Yeah.
because it's not like industry plant stuff like he is, and
Yeah.
your voice is so much better than his. But
Thank you.
yeah, of course, man. Yeah. Next, talk a little bit about your name, the OG Jonny G. It's a very interesting name. It definitely seems like it's a proud name. And so, how did that come about?
So the OG Jonny G, it for me now it's kind of a misnomer. It sounds like, like a rapper or like a,
Mhm.
but so I was in bands and everything growing up ever since I was in like the sixth grade. And then I went off to college to Texas Tech, and I couldn't take my guitar. So for the next 4 years, I didn't have my guitar, but I did have my new laptop with GarageBand on it. So I started making beats, and I eventually started rapping, and I rapped for a few years, and it's still on my SoundCloud, but I private it, but it's very terrible.
It's okay. It's
Uh,
okay, man. We all had that shitty rap phase. We all had
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I was called the OG Jonny G then, and then next thing I knew, I was on Spotify and everything, and I couldn't change it.
Yeah. It's okay though. I think the name always will have that cool story, and you'll always kind of be grounded in your roots in a way. Like
Oh,
this was
absolutely.
me. Now let's make that name mean something different almost. So that's a good way of looking at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's kind of what I was going to ask you about. How has your sound changed over the course of you putting out music? Because it seems like it's gone from really this trap kind of trap like rap kind of vibe to more of, as we previously discussed, pop punk. So what was kind of the influences that started that change?
Yeah, so getting out of the rap stuff, I went into the more emo stuff. I was doing like the, like emo rap, cloud hop, whatever. So I still had my foot in the water of rap while kind of transitioning out of it. And then eventually I started messing around with, full band stuff, and then messing around with, I had my guitar back out of college. So I hooked it up to my interface and started just messing around with that. And then came a song called Zan Hathaway. And that was my first like real, like kind of band song. And then came along Famous, and then my first album, and so
Okay.
now I'm in it.
That's a really cool story. Recently as in the last year, you put out an album, Killer Instinct, and
Yeah.
it received pretty good praise, as in views and or plays, and I feel like it didn't get necessarily as many uh plays as it's worth. So do you want to kind of
Yeah.
like maybe explain that what that album's all about to people?
Yeah. So Killer Instinct was a little more ambitious. It started off very poppy, very catchy, and then kind of slowly got a little heavier, a little darker throughout. And then toward the end, actually did a minute long metal song, and then a 5 minute long ballad that kind of just wrapped up the whole story and the whole sound of the LP just together. But really what I look at it as was I was transitioning out of, my cloud hop phase, which had somewhat decent traction, but I wasn't able to really dig my teeth into. So at that time, my audience was pretty cold. I was still building a fan base. I still am today, but at that time, it was nowhere near where it is now.
That's awesome. That's really cool. My next question is going to be, what are some of those big influences and inspirations that you've listened to in music and kind of made me feel like, wow, I want to do something similar to that, or wow, I really like this aspect of this band or this artist, I really wish I could imitate that? What are some of those for you?
So the big ones off the top of my head, my more poppy stuff is very influenced by Sum 41. That was my favorite band growing up.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, a little bit of Blink 182,
Mm-hmm.
and then nowadays it's sort of leaning more toward like Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and The Used. I really look up to Burt McCracken, his whole story, everything he did, like John Feldman going to Europe. And then lyrically, I'm actually very, very inspired by Neutral Milk Hotel from the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Mangum is an insane, he's a maniac, but he's
a
the
creative
way he
maniac.
describes everything is beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely
for sure.
beautiful.
Those are some really good influences to have, and I could totally, listening to even your newest track, and I just really see a lot of those influences in that, like the lyrics being so kind of like to the heart, and like really like these pure emotional feelings, and almost in a snarl, kind of like how the Used do it. And
Yeah,
while it has more of this like not happier, but like more of this like upbeat kind of like fast-paced pop punkness of like Blink 182. So I think that's a beautiful way of describing it. I think anyone who likes these bands will definitely like your stuff.
Yeah, and I definitely love being more cryptic with the messages and a little more eloquent with like metaphors and literary devices and stuff. And I feel like it keeps it interesting, and I try to steer away from like cliched lines. All the best stuff's already been said, So now
Yeah,
you gotta,
exactly. I love that stuff. As someone who's a writer or like loves to write and maybe is looking to do that in the future, I just think I think that's beautiful, and I really have liked your lyrics. They're very cool.
Thank you.
So if you want to dive into that a little bit, what are some of the most meaningful lyrics you've written in songs, or maybe what's a meaning behind a song someone may not get on the first listen, but you were intending to kind of convey?
So a pretty good one probably is Home and The Painter off of Killer Instinct. The Painter it's about a girl, the last girl to kind of not go well for me. So I talk about a painter who becomes infatuated and like obsessed with this girl that he learns how to paint. He builds his skill on trying to paint her and draw her because she's all he can see and she's his muse, and starts just going insane trying to do it, to the point where he kind of forgets what she looks like, and he keeps going and going, and then he just can't remember, and he's making stuff up and he's ruining it, and eventually it brings him to the point of just destroying everything and killing himself in the end. So that really looks more into kind of the way you see a person and how you will put them on a pedestal, and eventually that image that you have of them will be absolutely shattered. So it's really just like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't see people too highly, because in the end it'll only be bad for you.
I agree. That's kind of like that
Terrible.
whole toxic relationship where one person is put on a pedestal and kind of, you devote everything to them and kind of see them as they can't do anything wrong, when in reality they are probably doing something wrong, because that's why you even view them in that way. I can relate heavily to that, so I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it made a killer song.
Makes
so,
good music, man.
It's all about the
and
music,
that same thing kind of goes with Inferna too. It talks about like, so when I write, I like to paint a picture in my head, and then just kind of go off of that. So it's like you have like a fire, like a bonfire, and that like kind of represents your burning emotion and your passion. But if you get too close to it, it's going to burn you. It's going to really burn you.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like really, really cool.
Thank you.
I love that. So a big part of the OG Jonny G persona or performance, as far as I can tell, is stage performance and the way you kind of convey yourself off to the crowd and portray yourself. So you want to elaborate a little bit about that or touch on that?
Yeah, so I really try to hit kind of like that, really like a darker, edgier, very punk, but still like vampire-y. I don't know. People have like compared me to a vampire for the past year. So I've just kind of adopted it, and I'm taking that, making it a little darker, a little more rough around the edges,
I think that's so cool, just because I love anything that's alternative, but like the way but sometimes I feel like there's a way to be like, not too alternative, but there's a way to be like so alternative to the point where like, it doesn't even feel real anymore, but that's not what you do. You have this like very real look, like a very tangible thing, if that makes any sense. Yet it's so like not bizarre, but it's so like just interesting and very it's just really cool to see the way you put on like all this makeup and like all this like clothes. It just looks really cool. That's my point. And I think
Thank you, man.
That's a really important thing, because when you think about it, like the great big stars and stuff, like everyone has like an iconic look, like Kurt Cobain with his greasy hair and like his sweaters, like Kiss with their like makeup on and like that stuff. And I feel like the OG Jonny G, have your own thing going. I think it's a really cool thing.
And I remember specifically too, I had the way I started focusing on that, like honing in on the look, was because someone was wearing like a t-shirt of a band. I can't remember which one, but it was just silhouettes of their face, and I could tell you exactly which one was which. And I'm like, you know what? I need to make sure that if someone put a silhouette of my head on a shirt, you could tell exactly who it was.
And I'll tell you what, you're doing a fantastic job of that. You definitely have a unique persona going, and it's one that's really cool, and I think people can get behind. So I think that's awesome.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. And speaking of which, how would you describe the experience at a OG Jonny G concert or show? Like, how would you describe the crowd or like the your involvement with them? What's that like? What is it like to be there?
So for me on stage, I like to be very, very flamboyant, very over the top, very, like I act a little like really cocky in a way. At the same time, that really draws the crowd in a little more, and they're singing along. I like to interact a lot with the crowd. Back at our last show, Deep Ellum House Party, Wits End, that was actually last Friday. I was like putting the mic in people's faces, having them do stuff. And on that same card of like the cocky thing, like, and like kind of like, I like to think of myself as the modern Ronnie Radke, like kind of a dick. I love it. At least when I'm on stage,
Yeah, of course.
But
stage persona as well. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So my next question is going to be about future plans. So that has to do with future releases of music, studio stuff, live performances. What are the things that the fans of OG Jonny G can be looking forward to?
So music wise, I have a project called Venom coming sometime in the fall this year, and it's definitely on the darker side. Um, it kind of has the imagery of spiders and like deformation. It's very morbidly kind of conveyed, and it's a very interesting piece right now. Very much more rounded together than Killer Instinct was. Very cohesive, it's very beautiful. I can't wait to finish it and put it out.
That's awesome. And I can tell you're really proud of this. And just seeing that's an amazing thing. That display of confidence is just enough to tell people this is something we should look forward to. And I think that's
Oh,
really
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our interview. Thank you,
All right.
OG Jonny G, for being with us. If you like if you like what you see, you can follow us on Instagram, subscribe. We will have more interviews and more music reviews and more live sessions of underground rock bands. Thank you so much for being with us. And
Hey, thank you so much again for having me,
oh,
man.
of course, anytime. All right.